It finally happened, folks. It finally happened. Our Lord and Master Lorne Lanning himself, President and God of all of Oddworld, came onto the official Oddworld Discord server last night. He was talking to Oddworld fans about Oddworld Soulstorm, among other things, for over an hour. Unfortunately, typical for me, I only caught the last half an hour of it or so, but damn, it was great. I doubt I've ever seen a server that active before, and I first joined it over a year ago. I traced back, and from what I can tell, this was the first ever time the legendary, limitless, luscious Lorne Lanning had ever blessed us with his presence and said anything on the Oddworld Discord server. But no worries, he said he'll be coming onto the server more often over the coming months, which is perhaps a good sign, suggests that Soulstorm's come along well, maybe, and could be. So anyway, I've gone through the entire history of the interaction, and here's some of the most interesting things that were said. Pretty much the first thing he said was regarding Oddworld Soulstorm, saying, "I'm sorry it's taken so long, but we're aiming to surprise and to please." However, within 5 minutes of arriving, he was already talking about the next Oddworld game after Soulstorm. He said, "After Soulstorm, if you guys like it, we'll be moving on to number 3 in the quintology. Our completely all-new number 2 Soulstorm is setting up to head for all 5 getting done. But we need success in sales of Soulstorm to keep going, so we need to make sure you're all pretty surprised by what we've done, so we can keep on going." Addressing why it's taken so long to make Soulstorm, he explained that they're spending a lot of time on this game to make it easier to make the later ones, meaning a quicker development time by working on the new engine car technology and that sort of thing, which he expects will allow a development time of 2 years for each new game, which sounds quite splendid to me. I mean, are you willing to wait a long time for Soulstorm if it means a continued and thriving Oddworld franchise in the future? I know I am. He naturally mentioned that it also comes down to money. They need money to make these games, as anyone will take millions to make, he says, which is naturally difficult as a small developer independent of a big bank behind them. They just need more success in order to make more, which is understandable in my opinion. That's why they have to focus on getting Soulstorm right, and why they're putting so much into it. One thing I've wondered for quite a while is a quote Lanning said before Oddworld New and Tasty was released, in which he said that if they sold a certain number, then they'd be able to move on to the next game, and I always wondered whether it reached their expectation, as I wasn't sure if they were limping to make Soulstorm, if you like. Well, he said, "It made enough money to get us started on a much more ambitious Soulstorm," as I believe Soulstorm was originally going to be a much less ambitious game than it's turning out to be, so it's quite a good sign that New and Tasty made enough to encourage them to do something bigger than what they'd originally planned. However, Lanning says Oddworld Soulstorm is costing at least 3 times what New and Tasty did, probably because they're aiming for absolutely industrial epic scale. Personally, that sounds pretty exciting to me. Risky, perhaps, but you can't make a scrap cake without breaking a few scrap skulls, you know? What I got out of this is that Oddworld Inhabitants aren't working on building a game. They're working on building a franchise. Naturally, that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time, and that's why it's taken so long. They're trying to establish a long legacy with the ability to continue producing and producing. So there we go. This is Lorne Lanning, the man with a plan. He gave a few hints at the future of Oddworld, saying that as the quintology progresses, we will delve deeper into the world of Oddworld, progressing from the economic third world we've seen so far into the second world for the third game and into a rich first world in the last games, with the large city of Nolebab featuring in the 5th and final game of the Oddworld quintology. In terms of aesthetic, he suggested echoes of Blade Runner. Onto the game that they're actually working on currently though, Oddworld Soulstorm, he apologised for their silence on the game, but said they simply didn't want to say anything they'd have to step back from. Indeed, that includes the release date. While they're burning hard, they don't want to announce a specific release date because they know the Oddworld community will be annoyed if they miss it. In terms of the game itself though, they said Oddworld Soulstorm will be more cinematic than the previous games. Indeed, most of the developers seem to be in awe of the cutscenes that they've seen. Lanning didn't say much regarding the story, but said the character of Toby is really smart, but has some deep issues and will have a role in it. The gameplay of Soulstorm is something Lanning mentioned a bit, saying that he wants to keep focusing on social unrest as game mechanics, getting into more mob behaviours and influencing crowds and populations, but for a central character that's influencing the world. Mob rules and social unrest versus increasingly extreme population control countermeasures. While he said the game isn't a strategy game, instead having influences of various genres, he did refer to it as a platformer. which he has done so in the past. What he said about the species of Soulstorm is very interesting, and he even confirmed the return of one of my favourite creatures from Abe's Exodus. Firstly, he said there's a new wildlife in Soulstorm and it's going to make paramites look like puppies. They're going to creep you out. Later, in response to the question, what's your favourite creature you've redesigned or refurbished for Soulstorm, he said the Fleeches are his favourite. Last time you saw them, they were in a larvae state. This time they've hatched into something way more creepy. I guess we're committed to Fleeches now. He also spoke a surprising amount about unreleased Oddworld games. He mentioned an idea for a joke VR game that they did. It was going to be called the Waden game, and it was a VR in a waiting room like motor vehicles that is full of out-of-work Mudokons complaining about how rarely they get employed to make the next games. We actually had it running, which was really creepy, but VR didn't take off so fast, so we just stayed focused on Soulstorm, which was the right decision, I think you'll all agree. He also said he'd like to see more of Stranger and would still love to make the Brutal Ballad or Fangus Clot, but kept quiet on Oddworld Squeak's Odyssey, saying it was top secret. I conclude this video with what he said in terms of Oddworld Soulstorm news, which coincided with a tweet from Oddworld Inhabitants 2 days earlier, which read, "We've got some delightfully odd news coming your way soon." Lorne Lanning reiterated this throughout the interaction. "We're prepping to show stuff, itching to, soon. Hoping to have some news released soon, yes." And then, alas, he had to go and get some pizza, and I don't blame him. He's a top bloke and thoroughly deserves a Domino's American Hot, if you ask me.
Hello, follow me. Mm-hmm.